It's so politicized, you can't even tell which is what would have been a normal prosecution and an appropriate prosecution versus an inappropriate prosecution. That's how bad it is. Many have highlighted the disparate treatment between BLM rioters and Antifa rioters in 2020, where they tried to kill President Trump, victimized cities across America, targeted the federal officials for killing and assault, tried to burn buildings with people in them down. Little federal 200 prosecutions. I think last I checked, there were 300 prosecutions of those BLM riots in 2020 that tore the country apart. Compare and contrast with the Justice Department's, Biden Justice Department's political prosecutions of the January 6th disturbance. I think it's now 1,100, 1,300, doesn't matter. It's well over 1,000 prosecutions, some of which have these outlandish, in my view, over-the-top charges. When you compare and contrast other political / riots that have taken place in the past. For instance, when I went to the Kavanaugh hearings, there was all sorts of violence and intimidation. Certainly by their definition, the left's definition, insurrection, an effort to overturn democracy and trying to stop the Kavanaugh nomination by the left. Certainly nothing similar was done against the groups involved there. They're not facing jail for 15, 17, 18 years like some of these other individuals are. And in the course of our investigation and lawsuit for documents about the needless shooting death of Ashli Babbitt by Lieutenant Byrd, who's now going to be promoted to a captain outrageously. Ashli Babbitt, Lieutenant Byrd essentially popped out from behind a column, shot into a crowd, and killed Ashli Babbitt. No good reason for that shooting. He's given a free pass and special protection by both the Capitol Police, the District of Columbia Police, and the Justice Department. So we've had a lot of litigation to get documents about what happened there, expose a lot what went on. But in the course of that litigation, we received documents about how the Justice Department responded to the January 6th disturbance. And you can see in the documents it was an unprecedented apparatus that was set up as part of, it looks to me like a political purge of Trump supporters. So this was a lawsuit that we filed for against the Justice Department and the FBI for records related to the death of Ashli Babbitt. And we got back a bunch of documents, 90 pages of records, from the Office of United States Attorneys. And there's a chart there dated January 25th, 2021, so shortly after Bush came into office and a few weeks after the riots. And this is what their tasks are. This is the kind of the orientation of what they were supposed to be doing. To identify and prosecute the individuals and organizations responsible for planting pipe bombs at the DNC and RNC. We still don't know what happened there. To identify and prosecute rioting activity in the Speaker's lobby, and in particular determine whether there is civilian criminal culpability for the death of Ashli Babbitt. So they weren't looking at, well, they were looking at the police involvement in that death, but they were also interested in trying to prosecute other people around Ashli Babbitt for Byrd shooting her. To identify and prosecute rioters responsible for the death of U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. Of course, the rioters weren't responsible for his death. It was readily apparent at the time. They all knew it at the time based on information we have, or should have known it, but that's what they were trying to do because he died the day after of natural causes. To review force allegations against U.S. Capitol Police and Metropolitan Police Department officers, including the officer-involved shooting of Ashli Babbitt. So they were supposed to be looking at all of those issues, right? There was a riot. They're looking at prosecuting people involved in the rioting. But they were also supposed to be looking at the police if they committed misconduct. And, you know, an honest evaluation of January 6th would lead to a much more, dare I say it, nuanced analysis of what happened that day. You had lack of security that, in my view, encouraged and allowed violence to take place. You had ill-trained and ill-prepared and not a big enough police force to deal with the crowd that led to an overreaction by the police department in terms of anti-crowd control measures that incited the crowd in part. Does it absolve everyone in that crowd from engaging in violence and assault? No, of course not. But an aspect of the January 6th riot was that the U.S. Capitol Police and other law enforcement personnel who were stuck up there trying to protect the Capitol helped incite the crowd because they were throwing gas into the crowd and doing all those sorts of things that really didn't do anything other than rile the crowd up. Now, again, the left would like to make you think well, Tom Fitton says that he's justifying the riot. No, I'm not justifying the riot. I'm just calling it as I see it. And adults need to analyze how it is that riot happened. And instead it's been politicized, and they all just want to blame Trump, and they just want to put Trump supporters in jail, and in an unprecedented fashion start applying federal law to this disturbance in a way that's seeing people go to jail and be in jail in a way that's never happened before in American history. And it's all political. Or much of it is political. And it's so politicized, you can't even tell which is what would have been a normal prosecution and an appropriate prosecution versus an inappropriate prosecution. That's how bad it is. And then they talk about rapid indictments of January 6th defendants. Does that sound fair to you? Rapid indictments? That sounds like an MSNBC way of approaching indictments, not a law enforcement, Department of Justice, fair application of the law way. Phase 1, command center. This is part of the rapid indictment chart section. Co-located prosecutors and law enforcement agents in the command center screen referrals and assign them to phase 2 or refer them, push up intelligence to branches 1 and 2. Phase 2, complaints. Cases referred from phase 1 are assigned to AUSAs, the civil trial section attorney, and a Washington field office team who would work in coordination with the Assistant U.S. Attorney, FBI field offices throughout the country to obtain criminal complaints in appropriate process. Phase 3, rapid indictment. Cases charged out of branch 3 are funneled to this unit, which will rapidly indict them. And then indicted cases are returned assigned for prosecution. Cases are essentially tracked with ticklers for Speedy Trial Act discovery, intelligence gathering. And this is another disturbing part. Branch 4 has both litigation and technological responsibilities. Mass data collection. This team will coordinate and handle sensitive search warrants and other process directed at collecting large-scale data. Geofence ad tech. So geofencing is basically getting all the phone data for a certain area. Media issues. The team will coordinate evidence collection from the media under the Justice Manual and develop litigation strategy for media-related defenses. So they're going to target the media. First Amendment issues, etc. There's a litigation and technology support apparatus, lays out the array of technological sources to be used against the January 6th defendants. The chart lists categories of data, which include cell phone records, device location data, cell phone data dumps, and ad tech company location data, financial locational data, social media accounts, email accounts, cloud storage accounts, financial records, flight travel records, and others. You know, Judicial Watch was second to none in uncovering what was happening with the investigations of 9/11. And I want to tell you something. The FBI still wasn't able to figure out who helped pay and how the 9/11 hijackers were funded prior to that attack. And when we highlighted that this was the issue, the FBI kind of admitted it to the media. Yeah, we still don't know all the details. And I tell you, if they had devoted the resources that they devoted to January 6th to 9/11, there'd be dozens of more people arrested and terrorist networks rolled up. And I'm quite confident, because we work with people who investigated terrorism at the time, that if they had these resources available to them about known terrorist operators at the time, 9/11 would never have happened. But this is a decision by the Justice Department to deploy resources that have never been deployed against American citizens over a political riot, right? And it treats citizens as terrorists. These documents detail a troubling and unprecedented deployment of federal resources to prosecute Americans caught up in the January 6th disturbance. The documents seem to describe a massive political and spy operation masquerading as a law enforcement operation. So don't take my word for it. Go to the U.S. attorney sites, go to the Justice Department's website, Google what Garland has said, what Wray has said, what the Biden administration has said about the depth and breadth of their investigation of January 6th. And I dare you to find anything comparable in American history in terms of deployment of resources. They say there is nothing like it in history. They don't have anything bigger than this. And it's scary, because what it means is that people who committed, quote, misdemeanors are being treated like terrorists. But the left can do whatever they want in terms of civil disturbances, breaking the law, burning buildings down, and there's no similar response by the deep state. In the meantime, we can't get a second of video from this Congress about what happened that day, as I said earlier, because the Pelosi Congress, it's the McCarthy Congress now, refuses to turn over 1 second of the videos. They want to designate them all as security videos, and no one can see them. Not 1 second. Yeah, I know they've made videos available separately to journalists and others, but that doesn't make all the videos available, or all the videos that should be available under law. That's just stuff that is being made available under the discretion of the Speaker. But the legal position in court is none of it can be made available, and you have no avenue in court to make them available. It's unbridled secrecy. At the same time, they're prosecuting people like it's, as they say, the worst day in American history. So they want to have it both ways, right? Deploy resources never seen before in American history while hiding key information about what happened that day. Not only videos, but emails about why there wasn't security, where was the security, who was responsible for that. Unbelievable. So I encourage you to look at those documents, because the media, they're not going to tell you about what the FBI was up to and how they were spying on Americans to try to get them indicted. But Judicial Watch separately have been trying to get the FBI to give us documents about them getting the banking data on everyone who was in Washington, D.C. And of course, the courts here, who have enabled the Justice Department's crazed prosecutions and investigations of January 6th individuals, they've given them a pass on having to give us this basic information. So in my view, this is a failure both of the courts and of our Justice Department. This January 6th prosecution, the whole mania around it is going to be seen as a black mark on the history of justice in America, in the least. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.